Hello, everybody. This is not the most conventional introduction to a podcast video. My name is Josh. I run the Southampton Way podcast. I just wanted to hop on quickly before you jump into the main pod and say thank you very much to everybody who has been following us recently. We've got a lot more follows on TikTok, a lot more on YouTube. So we're nearly at 300 subs. It'd be great if we could hit that. I just wanted to make a quick PSA to all of you who follow us. Currently, we have got a Patreon set up. Now, there's currently 0 Patreon subscribers to any of our tiers. However, we are now at a point where we are creating with local companies some products to provide for you guys. You don't have to buy them. It just helps support the pod if you do buy them, and maybe you will enjoy them. I've been sort of talking to local companies about different ideas and designs and things like that. And recently, we've come up with something that I'm actually quite pleased with, and it's something that we can actually produce at a good price, and hopefully you will enjoy them. So, I mean, this is the first one. So there's going to be plenty more to come, but this is the first one. It is a Southampton Way podcast poster. It's A4. You can get it in A3 as well. You can get it framed or unframed. You can't see obviously because it's mirrored, but I'll try and put it up somewhere here. If I can't, then you'll just have to deal with this. It says, "Woke up this morning feeling fine. Got Russell Martin on my mind. He's got us playing the way Southampton should." Oh yeah. Now this has been designed by a local graphics guy. I think it's really cool. It's got Russ here doing his fist pump with his Saints halo. It's got all the kit design behind it. I think it's really smart. It's going to go up on my wall, sort of back there, with the other one, which is over there. But I'm not going to show that just yet. So you can get these on our Patreon store. You don't have to be following or subbed to buy these, but they will be on the Patreon store, and we are launching a website soon. But that's the first place you'll get them. They're $8.99. The bigger size is slightly more expensive. And if you want a frame, it is $12.99, I believe. Which, by market research, I think that's actually quite good. We've done it as cheap as we can, basically. You'll be supporting the pod if you buy one. And the best part is, if you would like to get your hands on one of these, if you subscribe to any of our podcast tiers on Patreon, which I believe the lowest one is £3, and the other one I think is £5. The first 10 people who are patrons on there will receive one of these for free. So instead of buying it for £9, you can just sub to Patreon for £3. And you get it for nothing. And yeah, basically over on Patreon, we just upload our regular stuff. We're going to start adding some additional content. We're going to be doing some Q&As soon with some former players, and fingers crossed, hopefully a current one as well. I'm currently working on that. But yeah, loads and loads of exciting stuff. Obviously, it'll be a community. You'll be back in the podcast. We'll be able to bring you better and better content every single week. That's all we want to do, really. We just want to produce something that you can enjoy on a weekly basis for free, and you just get a better product. Obviously, if you don't want to, that's absolutely fine. But if you wouldn't mind subscribing to YouTube, it is free. All you have to have is a YouTube account, which is also free. So yeah, if you're here, please like the video, please subscribe, because it does help. It really shows that you enjoy what we're doing. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy the prints. I mean, I'm quite pleased with them. I think they look really cool, and there's going to be lots more to come. So keep an eye on that. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the pod. Hello, welcome back to the Southampton Way podcast. This is episode 26. Thank you very much for joining us. Whether you are watching or listening, your ears and eyes are very, very appreciated. We've got lots and lots to cover this week in this week's episode, so we thought we'd bring an extra body on to cover it, because me and Martin will just talk for hours otherwise. So this week, joining us, we got a special guest. It's George Rees-Julian from the Daily Echo. George, thank you very, very much for joining us for this one, mate. I'm going to start with you, actually, if you don't mind. We're going to cover, first of all, the Man United game from weekend just gone, and then we'll move on to Everton. But Manchester United, George, what was it like for you from where you were sat? Because from where I was sat, first 35 minutes were outstanding. And then after that, it all went a bit peaked on.
Yeah, that start to the game was incredible. And I think the stat that sums that game up the most is that Southampton didn't have another shot after Archer headed that rebound straight at Andre Onana. I think they started the game so well. And I think Alfie even tweeted it that this is going to come down to how they react to conceding and to missing that penalty. If they go down the other end and concede a goal, the game will completely change. And that's unfortunately what they did. And that tendency to concede one and then concede another one straight after reared its head again. And if it wasn't for Ramsdale, we were just chatting about it off air then. If it wasn't for Ramsdale, it could have been 4-0 by half time. And they eventually did go and get the other one in injury time. I think that first 35 minutes was a completely different team. And what Russell Martin has been quite frustrated with a lot this season is the fact that when they get setbacks, they haven't reacted very well. But he seems to think that what they did against Everton, even though it was completely different players, is a positive sign that they have now learned how to react to those setbacks. And I think that's going to be massive because Ipswich are going to come. They're going to probably cause Southampton at least one setback. They have to react to it. And unfortunately, that's been the big point that they haven't done this season.
Yeah, reaction's not been our forte this season. It kind of was last season. It dug us out of a few holes, didn't it? We need to learn to get that grit back in our game, I think. And I will ask you about the Everton comments he made, because they're doing the rounds and people are reacting. Sort of, it's a bit Marmite at the minute, how people are reacting. But we'll move on to that in a little bit. Martin, you sort of jinxed it a little bit last week because you sort of said you weren't overly impressed by Matthijs de Ligt against Liverpool, and he's popped up and scored. Was that? Do you think that wasn't? Let's be fair. It was a free header. It was pretty poor, wasn't it? That first goal.
Really bad. But actually, saying that all in all, he was actually brilliant. I thought he had a really good game. They totally bullied Cameron Archer. Didn't get a look in really. If you think about it, in the whole game, Archer really struggled to really test their two centre backs. I thought that he was good. Free header, a bit unforgivable actually from the corner. Free header again from set play. We have big issues defending set play. I don't know how many we've conceded from set play now. George will probably know the answer to that one, but yeah, it wasn't great. I thought we were really good for the first 25, 30 minutes. We were outstanding. Dibbling was just sort of running the show. He's like fearless, going past people. It was called Diallo, who was a left back for them. For United.
Yeah, Diego Dalot.
Dalot. Yeah, he absolutely caused him so many issues, didn't he? It was brilliant. Wins the penalty. And we were, obviously, I think Brereton Diaz has the ball in his hand. Brereton Diaz looked like he was going to take the penalty. We all know his record. I think we've all seen it on social media as we're walking out of St Mary's on Saturday afternoon, early afternoon. And we'd all seen his record was very good from the spot. And we're all questioning why is Cameron Archer taking the penalty when Cameron's not really taking a lot at a professional level. And there was a long period of time between the penalty being taken, wasn't there? Maybe that played a part, but I just think the reaction to the penalty was not good. I think the heads dropped really quickly. I think the whole crowd, it just went so quiet. I was in the Northern Wall; it just went really quiet, and I think that the players did the same. It was alarming, really. I couldn't believe how we just sort of like. Yeah, heads just dropped and we go in at half time. We're 2-0 down. I just couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe it.
After that start as well, it was outrageous to go in 2-0 down. Yeah, I think a lot was put out after the game on social media about penalty records. Do you think that that's particularly fair thing to do, George, considering I'm speaking for myself here, but if you'd have asked me who I'd want to take a penalty based on how Cameron Archer was absolutely trying to take the net off at Cardiff, I probably would have given it to him, records aside. So do you think it's probably hindsight, people are just trying to dig out a reason as to why we've missed a penalty rather than it was just he missed a penalty?
I think there's definitely an element of that. If you were to offer me the two at the start of the game, having known the stats, I would have said Brereton Diaz to take it because he took his one at Everton really well as well. But I think think someone pointed it out that you have to take your first penalty to score your first penalty. And until you get that opportunity, you're never going to have scored a penalty. So it's disappointing that he's managed to miss it, but he is a striker. And Russell might have mentioned it today. He's going to miss chances. Obviously, you don't want to miss a penalty, and penalties are usually a goal that you expect somebody to score. But it's more down to the fact that they didn't react to that they went on to lose the game, because he could have missed that chance, but they were still the better team at that point. It's what they did afterwards, which is ultimately what's cost them the game. They could have gone and scored a couple of minutes later, but they didn't do that. And I think it's a little bit unfair to kind of lay the blame on Cameron Archer for losing the game when nobody really did anything after that penalty miss.
No, I think everyone went missing after the penalty miss. Well, probably slightly unfair. Martin, we spoke sort of before coming on air, but and you don't want to put too much pressure on him, but a kid whose head didn't drop was Tyler Diblin. He was still trying to make things happen. How good is Diblin to be taking it to Man United the way he did, and he's made Dalot look like a right knob, frankly. You know, and let's face it, Dalot was one of the better right backs in the league when he came into the side last season. He wasn't bad. He's definitely Man United's best right back. So what did you? How good is he? Is it now we should be that right side is his? Has he really firmly pushed Adam Armstrong to the bench now?
He's above everyone in his position right now, in my opinion, and I think he has been for quite a while. I think he was really unlucky not to start the season. I was down at Eastleigh for that pre-season friendly against Eastleigh, and he was good there. Him and Sam Amieo looked really good. The pair of them looked brilliant. The first thing I noticed about Tyler was the way he's bulked out. He looks bigger, his legs are strong. He fends players off like he didn't a year ago. It looks a different beast to that one that we saw in the FA Cup games that he played for us last year. And I'm excited by him. I'm really, really excited by him, and he's shown that fearless play in the opening Premier League games. I think he will score his. I said it on loads of media outlets. I think he will score his first Premier League goal before the next international break. I still believe he will. He come really close on Saturday. Brilliant at Everton when he come on. He's probably actually our best player on the pitch, and he only played 30 minutes against Everton. He was that good. It's really hard not to build a player up. And everyone's going to be looking at him now. But do you know what? Just why he's in that bit of form. And we so need goals. We need someone with spark and flair. And him and Mateus Fernandes give us that. You've got to have them in the team at the moment, I think, just because they will lift the players but around them, but they also lift the fans as well. And they're exactly what we need. If you took Tyler out of the team the weekend, it'd flatten it before it even kicked off. He's got to play for me now at this moment in time.
Yeah. Probably one of the first names on the team sheet. Obviously, always as a new player breaks through, and he's really showing that he's the mutt's nuts. So the big clubs and the speculation starts. And I didn't think it would be this soon, but it seems to be this soon. What do you know, George, about his contract situation? I believe I've read from tweets from yourself and Alfie that it's 26 with an extra year. But there's been reports this week that we're ready to offer him a new deal. Is there anything in that, do you know? Or
I don't know if there's anything in that, but I wouldn't be surprised, because like you said, he's got that 20 until 2026 and that extra option for a year, which you imagine the club would trigger, because why wouldn't you, given the way he's performed? It puts them in quite a strong negotiation position, and don't think he's someone who's immediately going to go in January or something, but if they were to get relegated, then sort of opens things up a little bit. But I think at the minute it's not ideal that there's speculation swirling around him, but if you're performing that well after only a couple of games in the Premier League, it's only natural. But I think we've just got to kind of give him some space to play football. Adam Lallana mentioned to me the other day, described him as still a baby, and that's ultimately what he is as a footballer and as a person. So I hope the speculation dies down a little bit and he's just allowed to play some football, because he's quite good at that.
Yeah, he is quite good at that. It's mad to think he was only 18 this year. It's not like he's just about to turn 19. Like he's only just 18. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. You talked about Adam Lallana. He came off the bench, Martin, along with a few others. It was quite the few changes Russell made before we went down to 10. What did you make of the subs before we talk about the other big moment in the game? What did you make of the subs who come on? So Fraser got minutes, Cornet, and we actually saw Ross Stewart for the first time, which was amazing. Saw Ross Stewart and obviously Lallana. So what did you make of them sort of when they came on? And obviously one of the big talking points was the fact that there was quite a bit of booing from the Northern men when Diblin's name was read out.
Yeah, there was a few boos around me when Tyler went off. I think Russell didn't want to take him off. I think he's come out already and said in his post-match press conference that he had cramp and he had to put him off for that reason. He worked so hard and he ran himself into the ground, and he's got to manage him a little bit. And I think he will do that. And I think we will see him come off in games. I think he will start games, but we will see him go off. But brilliant options off the bench. I thought that Adam Lallana, when he come on, he links the play that much. He's a real good football brain, but we transitioned all of a sudden that bit quicker. Typical Jack got sent off. We'll probably talk about that in a minute, but I thought up until that stage he just added something that we didn't have. He's a really good, intelligent player, isn't he? He looks after people around him, and how often do you see him misplace a pass? He just doesn't. I think his performance in the first half against Everton, we'll talk about that, I would imagine, but I think he's really knocking the door now, because not just the way he plays, but what he brings the team as well. Like that experience. Like if Adam Lallana had been on the field when we missed the penalty, would it have gone as wayward as it did? Would the heads have dropped that they did? I just think we lacked a leader at that moment in time, and that's what Adam will bring. I thought we might have started the game actually against United, but for me, he's the real plus point. Good to see Cornet get on. He looks like he's rusty. Same with Ryan Fraser. He looked rusty as well. But I actually thought Ryan Fraser, someone called me out on it today. I said I thought he was one of our better players up at Everton the other night. I thought he's really good. Got good energy. I think we're going to need his energy, and his commitment and his passion and his desire to win tackles, certainly later on in games, because if we're going to start winning games, we're going to need people like that. But yeah, good to see Ross Stewart back on the field. He looks like he's got a long way to go to get himself fit. It's a big step up from where he was. You think that the last time he's really played football, it's a long time ago. It was great to see him, but yeah, it's a long way to go.
Yeah, long old way for the Loch Ness Drogba, but it's good to see him back, definitely. George, let's talk about the incident then. So initially, from where I was, it kind of looked like it didn't look like a great challenge, but my instant reaction was yellow. But I had a bad angle, and then as soon as I saw the replay, I thought, yeah, you can't really argue, can you? I mean, I didn't think, after seeing the replay the first time, I didn't think he was maliciously going for his knee. I think he's misjudged the height. I think he thought Garnacho was going to try and chip a touch over him, and he just didn't do that, and he's run straight into his boot. But you can't argue with him, can you, really?
No, definitely not. I agree with you. When I first saw it, I thought, what? You sent him off for that? But then you see the replay and you go, actually, to be fair, that is definitely a red card. I agree with you as well. I don't think he saw Garnacho and thought, I'm just going to hit him. I don't think it was one that he did out of frustration. I just think he completely mistimed it. And it wasn't really a tackle that he needed to make. I don't think he really needed to dive in at that position, at that point in the game as well. You don't really, from your captain and a player who, for me, he's quite a reliable player. He's steady. He's never going to be the best player on the pitch, but you also expect a reliable performance from him. And as a captain, he probably did let the club and his teammates down a little bit to get sent off in that situation. He's going to miss a couple of games now. And I think the fact that he's going to be out probably lends more into the fact that I think Adam Lallana, if he is fit enough to start, I think they're still managing his minutes at the minute. He's definitely not someone who'll play 90. But if he's going to play a part of the game, I'd rather see it be in the first half, because he can use that game management, use that experience. He's not going to wear the armband. I don't imagine if Howard Bellis comes in, he might wear it again, or it might go to somebody else. But I think the fact that Stevens is out probably lends to bringing Adam Lallana into the team. But it probably made Russell Martin's decision a bit easier now as who he's going to start in that back four if he does stick with it.
Just on that, how many? So obviously it's 3 instantly for the red, but obviously the FA have put a charge towards him for foul language. Is there any update on what that could possibly mean? Would that be a fine, or would it be a potential extension?
At the time of recording, don't actually really know. I think they had until Thursday, which is today, to respond. And from speaking to people earlier, it seems as though they'll get the resolution on Friday. It could be a further ban. It depends ultimately on what he's done. And I think it kind of also depends on sort of the quality of your apology, because ultimately if you're being charged by something, I don't think he's going to come out with a defense that's going to sort of change and it's not going to really like alter what happens to him. It's either going to be a fine or further games onto the suspension, but ultimately we don't actually know what the incident is, so you can't really tell until you find out.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. I did see it was going to be today, so I didn't know whether there was anything further. But yeah, we'll see in due course on that one. Martin, so before the United game, I looked at the lineup and I was excited. I thought that's, if I was to pick a team, that's it for today. That's the one. And to be honest with you, I probably would have picked something very similar to what he picked for the Everton game as well, in terms of who he rotated out and in to the team. So you saw obviously, you said earlier Adam Lallana was one of the best players you thought in the first half. I'd agree. It was. Let's start with the first half, because that's sort of where it all happened, really, wasn't it? And with the goals, especially. So, what did you make of the first half? Pretty poor to concede from a set piece again, right?
Yeah, really disappointing to concede from a set piece, and it's not what you want, is it? Need to be better in those situations. That's for sure. And I think as time comes and we settle down the back four, I think like George just said, I think the decision with the back four has been made a lot easier now. He's been a lot of people questioning, why Harwood Bellis missed out the weekend. I can see why Harwood Bellis missed out. I think he's had a real tough start to the season, but I think Russell, everybody's like quick to criticize him. But I tell you what, when it comes to man management, he's really good at it. It gives Harwood Bellis the vice captaincy on Tuesday night. He'd have his arm around him. I know he dropped him out on Saturday. Gives him the vice captaincy, comes back in, and he's got a little bit of a point to prove. And he puts in a really good performance Tuesday night. Harwood Bellis is the best I've seen from him this season. He's back to where he was, at the end of last season, and I think that's a brilliant move from Martin. I'll tell you the one. I don't know if we'll talk about it, but I'll bring it up. Is for Adam Armstrong? On the other side for him, bit of a tough moment for him. Maybe losing what was the vice captaincy from last season. I hope he bounces back. I've said it a few times. I think Russell's a good man manager, and he'd get an arm around him. But it looks like Harwood Bellis will be that captain now at the weekend, and I think that will only add to his performance. And we need him to step up now. It's a big weekend, and I think that selection at the backs are a bit easier, but we need to be more organised. That's for sure.
Definitely. The captaincy will be an interesting one at the weekend, because I think if Lallana starts, I think it'd be useless giving him the armband, because he's going to act as a captain anyway. So you may as well give it to someone else. So you've got two captains effectively. Maybe did Stevens give it to Downs when he walked off? It might have been
he might have done, to be fair, because Downs wore it as well in pre-season at times, and him and Taylor Harwood Bellis have been the two that Russell's sort of spoken about, have really been able to grow as leaders, and Adam Lallana's sort of been able to help them with adding his voice into the group. So I suppose, it comes down to potentially him as well. I think he even captained Ipswich when he was 19, 20 when he was there.
Yeah, he's got it in him.
Yeah, he's done it before. He wore it at Swansea a couple of times when Matt Grimes was out. So yeah, he's definitely captain material. It's good that they've probably got a couple of people who can wear the armband now that Jack's out suspended.
Yeah, we definitely have a few natural leaders in the group. It's just, I think it's finding that hierarchy. It's all starting to fall into place, and I'll talk about also after we sort of cover this game about the team and how it's sort of starting to find its place, because there's a couple of key positions I want to talk about. But back to the Everton game, it was interesting to see we conceded from the set piece again, but it was more how we reacted to it. And that was kind of what he alluded to, wasn't it? So what did you make of the reaction to going one down? Because as soon as we went one down, and by the way, it could have easily been two if their lad, I can't remember his name, if he had his shooting boots on, it could have been two. It was quite a good stop by McCarthy. But what did you make to our reaction to even that sort of setback to nearly going two down?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't Jesper Lindstrom's night, was it? He kept sort of hitting him straight at Alex McCarthy, and I thought he was going to miss his penalty. That's kind of the way his evening went. But no, I think they reacted pretty well to going behind. The fact they go and get the goal, which they haven't really done so far this season, but they haven't done it actually. They haven't gone behind and immediately equalised. That's a positive sign. And I thought they were actually better after they scored more than they were before they scored. But like you said, Everton probably feel very disappointed not to win that inside 90 minutes, because they had the better chances of the game. It wasn't until Tyler Dibling came on and he was creating chances for himself that they started to go close again. But Ryan Fraser had that one, didn't he? Where I think he hit it at the keeper when he could have pulled it back to Adam Armstrong. So there was definitely patterns in play. Maxwell Cornet was trying to get the ball into the box. He still looks a little bit out of sync, but that's quite natural. He's only making his second appearance, his first start. He doesn't really know the group yet, and he isn't really up to match fitness. So I thought they reacted quite well, but it matters more how they react from that and actually go and do it in the league, where ultimately it counts much more.
Absolutely. I'm actually quite surprised at how many minutes Cornet's had played so far. I wasn't expecting to see him against United. He's spent a lot of last season out, so it's quite interesting that he's been thrown straight in to get acclimatised, throw him in at the deep end and see what happens. So yeah, that's good. Martin, is there anything to be had or said in the fact that we've gone and we've beaten Everton and sort of, I know it's not the league, but losing is a habit as well as winning is, isn't it? Do you think it's good to kind of press that on them as well and keep them in that losing mentality?
Yeah, you can't buy the winning feeling, that's for sure. And we haven't won a game since that game at Wembley. So, well, actually saying that, we won the last round, didn't we? Sorry, but the winning feeling, you can't really buy it, and that's massive. That would be massive, really. I thought the penalties were good, 6 perfect penalties as well. James Bree, quite a lot of pressure on James Bree when he steps up to take that 6th penalty, and he slotted it away. He took it really, really well. I actually thought he had a really good night. He doesn't get spoken about a lot, James Bree, and it's difficult for him because Yuki's ahead of him and he's still Carl in the building. I tell you what, he put a really good performance in, James Bree. I thought he did well. I was really pleased for him. Made some really important interceptions at times, but yeah, 6 perfect penalties, and you can't buy that winning feeling.
Absolutely, it's almost just. I was watching the penalties. I was sort of like that. I hate penalties as it is, but sort of I was, part of me was thinking, oh, how nice would it be if Cameron Archer was able to take a pen, get straight back on the horse and try and put one in? That would have been so good for him. But it was nice to see Ross Stewart putting one in, and like you say, every single one of them it with conviction. I mean, Fernandez opened it in style. It takes some balls to put it straight through the middle. I tell you, if you've ever taken a penalty in any situation, watching the keeper and thinking, if I put it down the middle and he doesn't move, I'm going to look a right dick. But he put it right down the middle, and it was a great pen. So fair play to him. We're getting to a point now, chaps, where the team is starting to sort of pick itself. We know who the goalkeeper's going to be. We know at least one player in midfield. We know at least 2 in defence, that sort of thing. So, but this happened last season, didn't it? Where these like sort of selection headaches come across sort of after the transfer window, as it was coming to a close, and then it all sort of settled down around Christmas, and we really got a feel for who was going to play. George, if there is any names who are just tattooed on that team sheet for this season, in your opinion, who do you think has just got their name written on that team sheet, like non-negotiable, he's got to be in?
I think at the minute, for this next month, I think Sugawara and Diblin on our right-hand side, the relationship that they've built together has been really, really good. I think Jan Bednarek has perhaps not had the best start to the season, but of those 3 centre-backs, you're probably going to want him and or Taylor Harwood-Bellis most games, and he's definitely going to be there. And now Harwood-Bellis with Stevens out. Ramsdale's an obvious one. He's kept Southampton in games, even though he's conceded 6 in his first 2. It would have been 10, perhaps, if someone else was in goal. Downs is another one. I think he's adapted quite well to the Premier League, coming back into it. I think when you watch a game, perhaps you don't see it as much, but when I've gone back and watched the games, you just sort of see him doing things, winning the ball back. And I think going into the United game, he actually had the most shot creating actions of any player, which is probably not something you really put down to Flynn Downs, do you? You think of him as this reliable midfield operator who's going to win you back the ball and probably give it to someone else to create, but he's sort of been allowed to push further forward. And when you've got Ugachukwu who can sit a little bit deeper, we saw Lallana sitting much deeper. Perhaps that's because he's not got the legs that he used to. I think Flynn Downs is someone who's doing quite well, and I think he's got a bit of confidence coming back into the Premier League this time, because he knows that he is going to be one of those players whose name is written on that team sheet a week before the game even happens.
Yeah, he has looked comfortable, a lot more comfortable than I was expecting as well. Martin, there is a few positions where there's a few headaches still happening in terms of who's going to play. I think we got a problem with probably the left-hand side of the pitch and who's going to play
I
either
agree.
side of Downs, right? I think Dibbling not. I mean, in my opinion, you can't play Adam Armstrong as a 9, as a striker in the Premier
Doesn't
League. He's
work,
just
does
not
it?
got the physicality right. So we can say that Dibbling's taken Armstrong's position for now. I think the left hand side is where we're having a few problems. What would your suggestion be on that left hand side of the pitch? Because a lot's been said also about we, and I kind of agree with it. We lose quite a bit of Walker Peters when he's on the left. But is
Yeah,
he
definitely.
still? Is Walker Peters? Here's a question: is Walker Peters a better left back than Charlie Taylor?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and it's a really tough one to answer. Actually, I thought Charlie Taylor did all right the other night. You know, there's I think Carl Walker Peters really and truly is probably the better option at this moment in time where they're both in the building. You know, I think Burnley were pretty keen to get rid of Charlie Taylor at the start of last season when they got promoted to the Premier League. Watching that documentary, left foot, I still think you lose something playing Carl Walker Peters at left back. I think you do, but he's playing his best 2 fullbacks, and that's what he probably needs to do at this moment in time. Carl Walker Peters is such a good player. He can step into midfield and play that inverted role if he wants to. He steps into midfield, and I'm not sure Charlie Taylor can do that. So I certainly think when we have the ball, it can be really helpful having him in there. I'd have Carl Walker Peters in there in my team. I don't one of the first names on my team sheet, no matter what at this moment in time. I'm really lucky still to have him. I think the problem probably lies with what he does with Brereton Diaz. Can Brereton Diaz play as an out-and-out 9? That's what I want to know. I think he really struggles coming off that left side at times. Maybe he's just bedding himself in, but I'm not quite. I think the jury's out for me massively on him. Look, he did all right in the opening 15, 20 minutes at Newcastle. Obviously, he was involved in the sending off. He didn't see him again. Obviously, the fans were on his back. I thought he was really poor against Forest at home. And I haven't seen enough of him yet to really convince me that he's that answer off that left-hand side. He's not going to go past anybody and start, getting to the byline, getting balls in the box. But he's a physical presence. So can he play as a 9 if we need to mix it up and play with a bit more of a physicality? I'm not sure he's been bought for that. I think it's a real difficult one. And obviously he's got to try and get the best out of Cameron Archer yet as well. And yeah, I think they're the selection headaches for me across that front three. How he does it. I think the midfield at the moment probably picks itself almost. I think Leslie Kachukwu was really good against United for periods of the game. He tired a bit, but I thought he looked good against Everton as well. He's a tidy little player, but I think there are some selection headaches.
Big time. The one I keep coming back to. I mean, I like the options we've got in midfield, George, because there's quite a plethora of type of player you've got. Like, you know what you're going to get from each of those players, so you can kind of tailor that to who you're playing against. So I like that. The thing that is really stressing me out is the fullback situation, because I don't want to say it, because he's probably our best player, like, full stop. But I'm not keen on Walker Peters as a left back in a back 4. I think when he's got the freedom when we're playing in a back 5, and he doesn't have to rely too much on that defensive duty, because he struggles to defend when it's on it, because it's not his natural side. I'm not saying he can't play with his left foot, but you can clearly see he does get caught out a few times positionally. Like in the 4, it leaves us quite open sometimes. Maybe I'm not seeing it the way other people are seeing it, but then you go to the other side. Okay, put him at right back, but why would you drop Yuki? Because he's been outstanding, and like you say, the relationship he's got with Dibbling is building, and it's brilliant. And I love what he says about Dibbling. That's another. So I think it's brilliant. I mean, he said it to you guys a few times, but
Yeah.
I'll let you explain. But yeah, what would you say to that, to the Walker Peters at fullback? Do you think I've got a point?
No, I think you're accurate in saying that he does his best work when he's going forward. But I also think at right back he can also be caught out as well, because some of the stuff he does is with the intention of purely going forward and adding numbers. And when you're sort of shuffling into midfield, then you're in sort of a transitionary position when they're going down the other end. You're not kind of out wide, are you? Because if you've lost the ball when you're in that position, he's not only got to get back, but he's got to kind of get out wide as well. But I think one thing that struck me with Charlie Taylor, when he's trying to go forward, like what Kyle Walker-Peters does, he's perhaps not got as much legs. I don't think Kyle's as quick as he has been in his career now, but I think Charlie Taylor's just that touch slower as well. And they don't really have the fastest back four, I don't think. So you kind of, whatever you do, it kind of comes down to how they react, because Southampton are giving the ball away, and it kind of comes down to how they react in that position and who gets back the better. But I think the one thing with Kyle, if you put him on the pitch, you know he's going to create a chance if he's playing on the right or on the left. He had that one where he got to the byline, cut it back, and everybody seemed like they were asleep in the box against United. I think he's done a couple of times, hasn't he? He's picked it on the left and he's almost ended up on the right corner of the box having a shot or getting the ball in. He's someone who can play basically anywhere on the pitch. And I think as long as you've got him at the club, you kind of have to play him. Does he have to start every single game? Perhaps not. Maybe there is going to be games where if you can really get at someone down the left-hand side, you might want to play Charlie Taylor, who can play it down with his left foot and feed it to someone who might have a bit of pace to get at them. But I think Russell mentioned it today. They're going to try and use players who fit the opposition they're playing against. Last year, we saw a really settled team, and we've seen a largely settled team this season, but it seems as though maybe they're going to keep some players and use them in certain games, and then other players might come in against different opposition.
Yeah. So, I mean, on that, I think Ipswich this season have mainly been playing Amari Hutchinson sort of down the right-hand side. From what I've seen, not that I've watched a great deal of their games in depth, but that's what I see. I'd assume we're going to play Walker-Peters. I think he should be able to nullify him somewhat. But it does. I don't know why. There's no rhyme or I really like Charlie Taylor as a player. From what I've seen, I didn't watch him at Burnley, but from what I've seen with my own eyes so far, I really like Charlie Taylor, and I just don't know where he fits in this team and when he fits in this team. Does he fit in this team in the same role that, for example, Jack Stevens played in the playoffs last season when he was playing at left back, like kind of that centre back at left back role where you just kind of sit back, or even when Stevens was kind of walking into the sort of in front of the centre backs at times, and like, does he play that role, or is he just a sit back left back? Does he play on as a left-sided centre back of a three when we play with a three at the back? I don't know, but I would like to find out sort of as the season goes where his role is. Moving on then to the midfield, Martin. You said Les Ogachukwu was good against United. I thought the same. I was really pleased with how he dealt with Man United's midfield. We sort of discussed how that midfield was going to be a really important battle, and I actually thought that, to be honest, I thought United would throw Ugarte in from the start, but they didn't. They started with Eriksen in the end. It was Eriksen, Mainu, and Fernandes, wasn't it? Which is again, it's a pretty tenacious midfield. So I thought he did pretty well. How do you see this one going? Because Ipswich have a different type of midfield, don't they? They've got, obviously, notably, they've got Calvin Phillips now.
Morsey
but
plays in there with him,
they've kept Sam Morsey from last season, and he's an absolute shithouse. He's difficult to deal with. So yeah, he's a tricky opponent. So who would you be picking either side of Downs? Would you go with that same two against United, or did you see enough from, for example, Joe Aribo against Everton to think, well, maybe he would actually work against Ipswich?
I think Aribo still offers something. I'm not sure he's ahead of Ogachukwu at the moment. I think Ogachukwu just got a little bit more athletic. He's taller. Something about him I really like. The Chelsea fans were really disappointed when he went out on loan because they really, really rate him. I think it'd be a good matchup in midfield actually this weekend. It will be. I went and joined the boys on Talking Town last night. I was getting a bit of a feel for Ipswich, and they were saying that Calvin Phillips has just started to find his stride. He's a little bit slow to start games, so I think the one thing we will need to do is start the game quickly. They're under the firm understanding. They'll kind of believe that Jack Clark will come into the side the weekend. They believe that Smodic will potentially play in the 10 from this weekend and sort of play in the pockets of space. He played off the left-hand side, I believe, the weekend, but they believe that it play central midfield. I think there's some interesting matchups. Midfield battle will be key. But it is worth talking about the Ipswich centre backs, by the way. I've heard some really good things about their two centre backs, have been really decent for them. But that midfield for me, going back to your question, Ugochukwu for me starts the weekend. I don't think he doesn't not play.
I agree. I think it's we're going to need someone who's physical and assertive in that midfield, as well as Downs, obviously. I think because we as much as Downs is a break up player, that's not all he does, and I like that he, like you say, George. It's not the sort of player you'd see him as, but he's got that in his locker, and so you don't want to lose that. And I like Leslie. I see him starting at the weekend. Do you think we'll keep the same shape? Do you think we'll stick with the 4, or do you think there's a chance that we could go with the 5, given the fact that Ipswich do like to play with sort of 3 up front, and they're quite front-footed, aren't they? From what we saw last season, there's sort of Bazball gung ho. We're going to throw enough shit at the wall and see how much of it sticks, sort of thing last season. So, what do you think shape-wise? Do you think it'd be wise to stick with what we've got?
Well, I think with the fact that Stevens is out, that's probably answered the question if they had that in their heads about maybe switching back to the 3 or the 5, depending on how you look at it. I think a lot of what they've done has kind of come when they're playing with that 4. Yes, they've conceded more goals doing it, but I think it kind of works a little bit better. You're talking about Charlie Taylor. He would probably be the one that you might expect to sort of come in as that left centre-back, but then he's not really done that either. And Nathan Wood had a sort of mixed game at Everton. I don't really see them switching away from the 4, especially because they're probably going to want to have Diblin in the side. And if you're going to have Diblin in the side, you're going to have 2 other forwards up there with him.
I agree. Yeah, we probably will see that shape. Martin, who's the man that we should be? I mean, obviously you said you were on the Ipswich podcast last night. Who's the man that they said we should be sort of keeping our eye on? I mean, I've seen a lot's been made of sort of how I've seen on Twitter. A lot of Ipswich fans have been really impressed with Liam Delap since he's come in. Yeah. Did they mention him last night? Is that the one that we should be worried about, or should we be keeping one eye on Smodics and
no, he's a big talking point.
Clark.
Big talking point. They think Clark will come in and they rate Clark highly, but from the sounds of it, from what I've seen, I've been watching the 30-minute highlights on Sky, and I've been impressed with Liam Delap when I've seen him play. They reckon he's a real bully, strong, really physical. They reckon against Man City, I'm not sure who. Somebody got pulled. He ran into several players. I reckon he's like an absolute monster. Like one of the City players went off injured after a collision with Liam Delap, and from what they say, definitely against Fulham at home, he was their main man. Scores a really good goal as well. I think he will definitely be their danger man. But from what they were telling me, they think they come and press Southampton. I think they did it a bit at the weekend against Brighton as well, but they reckon they did try and stop Brighton getting out for long periods of time. And when Brighton did get out, they say they were really dangerous, but they will press Southampton. There's no doubt about that. I don't think there'd be loads of time on the ball. It could be quite frantic. But one thing that did stand out, they were talking about the lad O'Shea that's playing at the back, Dar O'Shea. They rate him really, really highly. He was their best rated player on Flash Score. I reckon Jacob Greaves has come in and he's been an absolute monster at the back for them as well. So I think 2 really good centre backs is who do you go up and play against those 2? How are you going to get the better of those 2 centre backs? I think it'd be a challenge. It could be a challenge for whoever does it. I don't see Brereton Diaz playing in that role for us. I don't know why. I just don't see it at this moment in time. But we need to find ways to hurt them, don't we? We saw them last season. We see what they can do to sides, but we need to go and have a real go at them and start fast.
Absolutely. It's you mentioned him. I really like Jacob Greaves. I think Jacob Greaves, they did extremely well to get hold of him because there was a few Premier League clubs who were after him, West Ham notably, and I think Tottenham asked about him. And he's a really top player, and he's they've done really well to get him, I think. George, is there enough? Do you think we've learned enough from playing them twice? I think they were one of. Was it 2 or was it 3? I think it was one of 2 teams. Was it them and Leicester that did the double over us? I think that was it.
I can't remember the score in the Middlesbrough game. Did they do the double as well? Or I can't remember.
I can't remember.
It's too long ago now at this point.
I can't remember what I did last
week.
But it it was one of very few that we just couldn't crack. So, do you think we've learned enough about them, or do you think that they've made enough adjustments to this league where they'll sort of jink us again and they'll do us again? I mean, I really hope not. It's a massive game, but what do you think in terms of tactically? Russell Martin and McKenna both looking for their first win.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be a different game.
Who do you think?
Sorry,
who's going to have the upper hand? Basically, I think.
Yeah, it'll be a different game because there's different players in the team. The teams have a slightly different makeup now because of the players they've gone out and signed. Reading what Kieran McKenna said today, he doesn't think that the double they did last season is going to have any impact on the game on Saturday. Russell Martin is hoping that the players can use that late defeat at Portman Road, as a bit of fuel and a bit of motivation to kind of go and hunt for a bit of revenge, because that's what they kind of used it for during the promotion run-in last season, and kind of through the playoffs they used that game and the hurt from that game a lot as motivation. There's new players in the squad now, and he's hoping that they can tap into it, even though they weren't there. He's hoping that with the other players who were part of that defeat, we'll be able to sort of breed that same feeling that they had last season to go and just sort of come back from that. I definitely think it'd be a different game because, like I said, different players in the team. You're also a very different scenario now. That was a game between two teams who were fighting to keep winning all the time. Now it's a game between two teams who are looking for their first win. So I think that probably changes the mentality because the two teams are in a different position. Perhaps if you're going into a game as a footballer, I think Carl Walker-Peters mentioned it, speaking about the Leeds game, about how the fact they'd beaten them, the West Brom game at Leeds, about how they'd done well against West Brom twice. Going into that playoff game, he said, if you've beaten a team recently, it's not going to do you any harm, is it? But at the same time, the team who've lost also have that motivation to come back at you. So I think it'd be a really interesting game, and it'll be a game that, although it's only the fifth game of the season, could kind of alter both teams' perceptions of how they've started the season, because Ipswich have got 2 points and they're seen as the team who started much better than Southampton. But if Southampton beat them, they're on 3 points after the same number of games, and all of a sudden they've got more points. But then, is that a better start to the season? It's quite difficult to work out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I think it's all down to how you perceive what a good start is and what isn't a good start. Because I think if you speak to, certain fans of, like, for example, the best example I can think of right now is like this time last season, my brother-in-law's a West Ham fan, and this time last season, a large section of their fans were still unhappy with the way the team were playing, but they had 10 points on the board and they were up in the top 5 and they didn't want Moyes. And now they've got 4 points on the board under Lopetegui, and those same fans are saying sort of, oh, but I like this football more. So it's hard. It depends who you want to please, really. It's really tough to see what the perception is on what a good start is. I mean, media perception's easy. They're going to say if they're losing games, it's a bad start. So the media perception is quite big at the minute, isn't it, Martin? It's great. It seems to be growing all the time. This media pressure, that it's almost like they want managers to feel pressure just to get like a clip or something, or he's losing his mind, he's going to get the sack, like a big story. Like they seem to want it. It's strange, and a lot of our fans are sort of they're making it worse in a way. What do you make of the whole like social reaction to Russell Martin at the moment?
I've got a really strong opinion on it. I don't have any relationship and I don't know him. I've met him a few times and I like him, but short memories, because when you look back 5 games ago, we were at Wembley and he was the messiah, the best thing that had happened to this football club. He got us back, masterminded that playoff campaign, magnificent. How he turned that around, because we were really struggling going into that. That took a lot of work, done really, really well to get it over the line. And look, he deserves a chance. Sometimes I wonder, like, has he got the tools at times? I think, we've made a lot of signings. Has he got what he needs in the final third to win us games? But I tell you what, like, I just think it's under a microscope all the time, this game. But short memories, he needs time. And even if we got beaten at the weekend, I really, really hope that they will pile on him. They will absolutely pile on him. But he needs, it's a cliche, giving a manager time. But who else would come in and do a better job with this group of players, in my opinion? I don't think there is. I think he's a great man manager. I think he will get results, and he will get us going. I don't know if there's any doubt about that. I think he's brought so much good to the football club. But there is a massive thing from a bit of the press comparing us to Burnley. We said about it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. it's lazy, and it gets a little bit boring after a while. Because at the weekend, they will say, "Oh yeah, he won't change his way of playing." I thought we were a bit more direct the weekend. I thought we went forward quicker. I thought Ramsdale went long when he could have gone short. There was they mixed up their play loads, and there were the first 25 minutes. If they could see that out for a whole game, they'd get wins. They will do, because it was really good, and they just need to be expansive, find a bit of belief, bit of confidence, and it'll all come together. And hopefully, they will lay off him and just leave us alone for a while. But there is a massive vendetta at times, or not vendetta, like microscope more than anything.
Yeah, it's a circus, and it's absolute lunacy. I mean, this is another call for Saints fans to calm down. Like, if you're thinking about who needs to replace Russell Martin, calm down. Genuinely, I'm not joking. This week on Facebook, I saw someone, I'm not joking, call for Neil Warnock. They want Neil Warnock now. That I like Neil Warnock. That's mental. That's ridiculous, right? That is mental. First of all, why would you get rid of Russell Martin? Forget about who you replace it. Why would you get rid of him? Look at every interview of every signing we've made this summer. Every single one of them said they can't wait to work with the manager. Why would you just rip that dressing room apart? Like, you're taking the nucleus out of the dressing room straight away. Why would you do that? You're giving yourself a worse chance of staying up. Like, regardless of how you feel about how we play football. And like, it's, again, I agree, Martin, lazy media assumptions say he's not going to change the way he plays, because if you ask him straight, are you going to change the way you play? What's he going to say? Yes, I'm going to change the way I play. No, he's not. Why would you do that? He's not. The principle, anyone with half a brain cell knows the principle is going to stay the same, but it will be changed depending on who we're playing against. It's mental. George, come to you on this, because from your obviously part of not the circus, but you're part of like the media as such. So what is it like from within? Is it like, do you sit sometimes in the press conferences and think, like, sort of a bit of a head scratcher, like, oh, what, like, why are they asking that? Like, obviously now you've got like Sky and stuff doing sat in the pre-match press conferences, whereas last season it wasn't quite like that, was it? But has anything changed in terms of that step up to the Premier League? Has the type of question changed, or is it all kind of samey but with more people?
Yeah, there's more people there now, and to sort of defend some people who have asked questions, where especially the Burnley ones, because that's been one that, particularly after that Brentford game, there was different reporters. One person asked Jack Stevens, "Are you going to do a Brentford, basically, and not change?" And they asked Russell Martin the same thing, and they both immediately said, "Well, no, Burnley did change. Burnley changed, and that's ultimately why they got relegated, because when they then changed back, they were kind of a little bit better." But I do think that there are people now who will be going to games and asking questions who aren't in the same position as myself, Alfie, or Adam Blackmore, who see every single game and we see every single action. And I think sometimes those questions, perhaps the person asking it needs to do a little bit more research and maybe shouldn't just make that lazy assumption. I don't know if it is a lazy assumption. It can be quite a fair assumption if that's ultimately what you've seen, because you can only go off what you've seen. But I do think this idea that perhaps if you lose your first 4 or 5 games, that the manager has to be sacked, I don't think that should be how football works. It is ultimately how football works at the minute. And I can kind of see why people's brain will then go to think that, oh, the manager's going to get sacked, because that's what happens everywhere else. But like you touched on, I don't see how getting rid of a manager is immediately the thing that fixes everything. And I don't get the feeling that that's what would happen. And if I was in charge, it wouldn't be what I would do, because I just don't think that sacking people left, right and centre is what goes wrong. Because you look at when they got relegated previously, you have 3 managers in that season and none of those changed anything. So do you want to get rid of your manager who, like you said, has been a big part of the reason that they signed players? If you ask Cameron Archie, ask Yuko Sugawara, why did you come here? They always say, because I wanted to work with Russell Martin. I really like the style of football. And yes, the style of football isn't going to change, but like there's a big difference between a principle and a game plan. They're 2 very different things. You play in a certain way, but like you said, they changed things up against Man United. They look to go a little bit more direct. They've looked to bring Tyler Diblin on, who isn't someone who's just going to pass the ball backwards or pass the ball to the side. He's going to go and do something that is different. They've got Mateus Fernandes, who's still getting up to scratch, completely different player to a Will Smallbone or a Joe Aribo. So yeah, it's very early. What, with 4 games into a Premier League season, you don't get many newly promoted sides who after 4 games look incredible And you don't get many teams. I think Sheffield United, when they came up, didn't they? They looked really good in that first season and then fell off the next season. It's more about what you do over a longer period of time than just 4 games for me.
Yeah, it's just sensational, isn't it? Absolutely sensational. Another thing, Martin, that I've seen sensationalized recently. Obviously, we've spoke a lot about the Jack Stevens agenda that people have, and they look for any reason to criticise him. And unfortunately, he's given a big red obvious reason to criticise him this time. Step aside from the criticism, because it seems like that's just never going to stop. He's never going to please people because he's Jack Stevens. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to you, but it's more about, I'm seeing this week of, it's now the criticism's being leveled at because Stevens has almost proved their point as such. The criticism's almost come back round and leveled at Russell Martin and they're pointing the finger at him saying, why are you not playing Bella Kotchap? He's our best defender. What do you make of that call? Because I've seen it a lot and I can't get my head around how people are coming to that conclusion.
Yeah, it's interesting, the Bella Kotchap one. And he answered Alfie's question pretty honestly, I thought, in the press conference at Goodison Park the other night. And look, he's going to pick what he feels is the best team and the best players to win games for Southampton Football Club. And like he said, if it doesn't go right, he gets sacked. His job is on the line and he's going to put the best bodies out. And if he doesn't feel he is going to give enough for us on the football field, he won't pick him. And I'm rightly so. Like he sees these people day in, day out. He knows what his attitude's like. He knows what he's like as a human being. Absolutely. I'll back the manager because he's the one, him and his staff are dealing with him. If he was good enough and he was, we wouldn't be looking to get rid of him in the first place. If he was good enough and he felt that he was committed to our football club to wear our badge, they wouldn't be trying to get rid of him. And I don't think he's going to bring him in for 1 minute now. I don't see that. I like Armand Bella Kotchap. I think he's a really good player. And I thought maybe the international break, something may have changed, but it hasn't changed. So it is what it is. I trust the manager's decision on it. I really do. I think as football fans, it's easy to say, oh yeah, he's better than anyone else we got, but the manager sees him.
Totally agree, and I think it's important to remember as well, Russell Martin's comments. If you've got short memory, like a lot of people do, it's on the internet. You can go and have a look. Russell Martin's comments at the beginning of last season, in pre-season, everyone was asking him about players who were going, and he kept stressing, "I would love to work with Armel. We'll wait and see what happens. He's a big physical lad. I get excited by how he looks. He looks great." So you can tell the intent was there to work with him, and he didn't want a bar of it. And he wanted out. So that's what happened. And he's clearly come back and he's wanted the same thing because he failed a medical at was it Hoffenheim? Some club in Germany. So that he's clearly his headspace hasn't changed. He doesn't want to be here. So you're going to try and shoehorn a player into a team who doesn't want to be there, who also needs to learn a whole new system. It seems a little bit backwards to me. What would you say on the Bella Kotchap thing, George?
Yeah, I think if you're looking on paper, if you look at them purely as footballers, he probably shouldn't be behind Ronnie Edwards and Nathan Wood in the pecking order because he's proven he can be a Premier League footballer, but a Premier League footballer for this Southampton team, perhaps they're in a better position because they have been brought in by the manager because the manager likes them. They've been brought in because the manager thinks they can play that style. Yes, they're very young as well, much like Armel, and they're getting up to grips with this level of football. Ronnie Edwards hasn't played yet, in the league at least. I think somebody's made this point at the press conference earlier today that sometimes as a footballer, you can improve because you're not playing. Everybody else starts the game and you lose, and that makes everybody on the pitch look bad. And purely because you haven't been on the pitch, you start looking better and fans start thinking, who can we bring in to change things? I do think there is an element that Armand Bella Kotchap would be good in the Premier League, but is he going to fit for this team? I don't know. I think even when it looked like he was going to Hoffenheim, Russell said that he is a good player and he will be a really good player for a team, but it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be this Southampton team. And I think, yeah, if he is somebody who perhaps hasn't got that right mentality, Russell Martin speaks about that a lot, about how someone beds into a group, how they give everything. He says he's training well, but I think the fact that he didn't go to Everton suggests that he's not going to be anywhere near the sort of pecking order. And even when Alfie asks him the question, is he going to play? If he says he's going to train well, I think, well, by that point, when he answered that question, he'd already made his mind up if Armel's going to be in the team. And he's never going to come out and say, oh, he's not going to play for me, unless things get really sticky, because then you've got a player in the dressing room who's been told publicly, you're not playing. I don't think we've got to that point yet, but you just can't play someone purely because they look good. Onuachu looked really good when he was out in Turkey, but no one sort of clamouring and calling for him to come in yet. But if all the strikers haven't scored in a month or two's time, then all of a sudden Paul Onuachu's supposedly the answer to the questions that aren't even questions yet.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's right. Footballers get better without playing, don't they? So that is typically how it works. And I just another reminder: these are real human beings. They are in real life situations. You don't know what their situation is in terms of family. Does he want to go back to Germany because that's where his family is? He's still a young man. It's not worked out here. He wants to go and play football back in his home country. You know none of these things. You think he should be playing because you got his silver card in your Silver Stars team on FIFA. It doesn't work like that, brother. It doesn't. I promise you. They are real people, and he has to fit in with real people. And it just might not be a match. It might not be a match. Just take a minute before you post on Twitter that Armel Bella-Kotchap should be in over Nathan Wood and Ronnie Edwards, because I'm not saying they will see it, but if you're Nathan Wood and Ronnie Edwards and you're seeing several people saying that you should be down on the list even though you've been signed and you know what's going on in the building, you just think that's just lunacy. Like, what's he talking about? Like, I should be here. It's just stupid. It's just utterly stupid. Martin, we haven't done it in a while. Should we, because we haven't done it in a while and our luck hasn't been in, shall we try and predict the score for the weekend and hopefully have a change of fate? What would you predict our score is on Saturday?
Right. I'm going to go with my heart. I'll go with my head. I'm going to go with my heart first, and I think this is what I'll go with. 2-1 win. Tyler Diblin to get his first Premier League goal. Saints to win the game. Walk out of St Mary's really, really buoyant. I think my gut feeling is it'll probably end up a draw, but it won't be it'll be a decent result for them. There's more pressure on us than Ipswich. Ipswich got 2 points already. They're away from home. There's more pressure on us to find our first points, our first goal at St Mary's. I hope we can win it. I can't have to back my team, so I'm going to go with 2-1. 2-1 Saints, Dibbling to Net's first goal. Definitely.
You've been right about Tyler Diblin so far, Martin. So I might have to have a little dabble on that at the weekend. George, what would you stick your neck out and say the score's going to be?
We're talking about having a dabble on Tyler Diblin's score. If I was a betting man, and I'm not, because I'm rubbish at betting, so perhaps don't go off my prediction, I'd go for a 1-1, just because it's just kind of what I feel like is going to happen when two teams are hunting for that first win. It kind of always feels like it ends up in a draw, but ultimately the game's just going to come down to if Southampton can maintain their levels for a full 90 minutes, which they haven't really done yet, because even at Newcastle, they dominated the whole game, but they never really looked like scoring. They kind of had that level and they didn't keep going up and up and up. That's what they need to do against Ipswich. If they do have a setback, react to it. And I feel like they've shown us they're starting to be able to do that with that Everton game. So I'm going to go for 1-1, but unfortunately, if Martin's sticking in Diblin score, and I'll add a little extra prediction, perhaps it might unfortunately be a goal from a set piece, or might be coming from Leif Davis, because he caused a lot of problems last time we played against Saints. And I think he's probably one that the game's going to revolve around him. I feel like him going forward, but then also Saints getting in down his side, because he's a little bit like the other fullbacks we've spoken about. He's not the best defensively, but he's really good going forward. And I think he could be a real talking point.
It's an interesting one, actually. Diblin versus Davis. That would be that will be a battle that would be that could be tasty, because Davis, for all as good as he is going forward, he's been exposed a few times this season for not tracking back or losing his man. So that one will be very interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna go for a 1-0. I'm gonna say Ramsdale's gonna keep his clean sheet. We're gonna get a scrappy 1-0 win. It's not gonna be pretty at all, but that's what my heart is saying. If we can get a win before that massive big derby game away at Bournemouth, I'll be happy. That'd be brilliant. Oh, and by the way, everyone, before we go, early kickoff is West Ham versus Chelsea. The club will be putting it on in the fan zones, so if you want to see that one, I would suggest getting down there early. You do get a drinks discount in the fan zones as well, and as we've said before, the atmosphere is superb in the build up to the game. So yeah, if you don't want to be stood outside, not able to get in the northern fan zone because it's absolutely shoulder to shoulder, which it will be, I would get down there as early as possible. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for listening this week. Thank you, George, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. We'd like to have you again whenever you're free, mate. Whenever you're free.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Floor's always open, mate. Martin, as always, absolute pleasure. If you I'm sure you already know where Martin is, but I'll link all the guys' social media below. But yeah, have a brilliant rest of your week, chaps, and let's hope that we can get a result on the weekend. Cheers, everybody.